I am currently dying due to my illness. I tried to contact my mom after years, but she wants nothing to do with me. My wife, Sarah, 39F, has a son, Vicky, 20M, from her previous marriage. Because of the way my wife and I got together, there was a lot of strife in her divorce from her ex. There was a lot of turmoil in Vicky's life, and he was only 8 at the time. For a few years, my wife tried her best and tried everything to help him, but it was like the more she tried, the further he got away. It came to a head when he was 12, and she caught him trying to smoke, and then he almost broke her jaw when she stopped him. After that, she stopped trying to force the custody and just let him stay with his dad. When he was 14 and we had our son, she sent him a message that his brother was born and that even if he doesn't want to be around her, it doesn't mean that he can't love his brother. He just responded back with, "Go F yourself." She tried the same thing 3 years later when our daughter was born, but got no response this time. Well, 2 days ago, she got a call from her ex and he was crying, and apparently Vicky is dying. He has cancer and they found it very, very late, and he's optimistically only got a month left, and he's begging to see her. So I've told my wife to go and spend the month with him. She can work online from a month or take a leave or just quit if they don't understand. However, she's refused, and she's used everything from work to needing to take care of our kids to even thinking, what if it's just a trick to hurt me more as an excuse not to go? At the same time, she keeps crying, muttering about thinking that she had more time, ignoring our kids, looking at old photo albums of her and Vicky. It came to a head this morning when I caught her having a breakdown in her car before going to work. I begged her to reconsider when I saw, and then she called me an effing a-hole for trying to push her into going. I know he's not my son and that I have no right over him, but not going is tearing Sarah apart. So, am I the a-hole? Edit. To everyone confused. By the way, when our kids were born, that was not the only 2 times that my wife tried to reach out and see if he was ready to see her. It's just when our son was born, that was the only time that he responded. She tried up until his graduation, when even his father tried to get him to invite her. She sent him money, presents, and everything for his birthdays. And as for when he struck her, that was when he was 12. He did so with a hockey stick and then kicked her when she fell. She forgave him for that because she knew what he was going through and he's her child. But she decided to stop seeing him then because she didn't want her presence in his life to make him more violent. What if he hit another kid like that, was her thought. And to everyone saying therapy, yes, she took him to therapy. She tried so much, but he was non-responsive then. Now, here are some relevant comments. User 1 said, "I presume she cheated on her husband with you, and that's why the son wants nothing to do with her," which is understandable, to be honest, for a kid especially, even at 14 to 15 years old. You are trying to do right by her because she will absolutely regret not going to see him. It's doubtful based on their relationship that the son will let her around for a month, but at least she can and should go say goodbye. He has a right to feel angry with her. She needs to sack up and go, or she will be haunted by this after he passes. Thank you. It's her son who is asking, and he hasn't asked for her at all in so long. I understand her being afraid, but this is her last chance. Update. My wife's son Vicky passed away a week ago, and I guess I'm posting because I also feel I need to clear up how I feel about things, and people were so willing to listen here before. Now, after my wife came home the day I posted, we had another big argument about it, and I honestly felt I wasn't getting through to her. I tried to use some of the points that people in the comments told me, and I just was surprised at how stubborn she could be. But it ended with her screaming at me that her son's not sick, he's not dying, and he's fine. I don't know if she was just that deep in denial or she thought it was a trick or something, but the way she screamed scared our kids, so I felt that I had just to let it lie. My wife actually got a call a few days later from a young woman claiming to be her son's wife and begging her to come, and that made her do it, and the people at her work were so understanding they gave her up until the end of the month off. My relatives came over to help me with the kids since she made it clear that she had to do this by herself. She took a flight out to where her son's family was staying. She got a hotel and went to see him. She hasn't really told me everything in detail, given that she only got home 2 days ago, but pretty much, according to her ex, their son started acting odd about the time he graduated high school. They didn't think anything of it then because he was acting way more mature. They got him married in India about half a year ago with no objections. And she said her ex was blaming himself for not having realized that he changed because he was sick. She told me they got him married because his wife is the only child of a family with a lot of land. What's really made her cry over and over again is that nobody even told her that her son was getting married. She kept telling me that she would have known he was sick, she would have been able to save him, that she should have been there. Honestly, she's right to blame her ex because her own relatives don't talk to her. She doesn't use Facebook and she had a right to know. As for her daughter-in-law, my wife has done nothing but sing her praises. She's studying engineering at the University of Alberta and she is currently pregnant, and that's honestly giving my wife a bit of hope. She said that a piece of her son is still there, and I honestly don't know how she would have been if she wasn't. I know how hard it must be for my wife's daughter-in-law, but I am glad that they can be there for each other. As for my wife's son, my wife hasn't really shared that much with me. She just said that he was sad. He kept on apologizing for how he was and forgetting things, and that the way he was made her feel like her son was already gone before she made it there. She did tell me that he passed away in her arms while she was praying, so I really hope that means that they were able to reconnect. I don't expect her to share this with me, but I guess that's where my frustration comes from. I've always wanted my wife to have everything she wants, and I know in her heart there's nothing she wanted more than her son back because he was her heart, and now she can't have that. And it's not like an estranged parent or sibling dying because he was her son and she made him. She literally made him, and I see her crying that it should have been her, and it honestly makes me angry. All I can do is be there for her, but I feel like I shouldn't have to because her son shouldn't have died so young and so cruelly. So, thanks for listening to my rant. I might come here again if I need to do so. Then in the comment section, one user said, "Thanks for the update. I am glad the poor kid got to see his mother before he died. It's a bit of solace, and I certainly think it's for the best." Story number 2. OP's sister reveals an awful secret to her that could upend their family. So, I, 28F, don't really know how to start this, so I'll start from the beginning. I come from a really dysfunctional family and always grew up around chaos, drama, and abuse of all sorts. Being yelled at and living violence was our normal daily life. My 2 younger sisters, 24 and 21, are the daughters of the man making us live through hell and back. I will respectively call them Anne and Steph, 24 and 21. Growing up, I was always closer to Anne, since we've been through the same type of abuse from the same man. Steph was my mom's favorite, so even though she lived some trauma too, it wasn't as much, or so I thought. Becoming adults, things shifted. Anne moved to another city that was kinda close, so I only really saw her on holidays and that type of stuff. Steph, though, we became closer every year. I realized she felt like being kept apart for most of her life, and despite living less violence than Anne and I, she went through her share load of BS too. Recently, I went to see her with my girlfriend and she felt comfortable to reveal some childhood secrets I didn't expect. Anne abused her from when she was 6 years old to when she turned 11. She never spoke about this to anyone. After 10 years, she finally felt secured enough in our relationship to talk about it. At first, I wasn't surprised really. Anne always had issues with being sexual, even when she was only 9 years old. She would be kicked out of schools because of her behavior, but we never thought she did that behavior at home. She told us Anne forced her to get eaten out, watch adult videos, learn how to have sex with men and women when she was only 6 years old, and even more. To say I was shocked is an understatement. I still don't know what to do about it. I know Anne had some SA going on with her birth mother, and her father abused her in that way for 3-ish years, but I didn't know she repeated the pattern with my youngest sister. I am torn between wanting to beat the ever-living hell out of her and understanding where she comes from. I'm not condoning at all what happened, and what she did is wrong. Knowing everything she's been through, I understand why she did it. They say that hurt people hurt other people, right? But what do you do when it's your sister? I want to tell my mom, but I don't want to make my already dysfunctional family implode even more than it did before. We were just starting to become unified like a family is supposed to be. We were healing slowly, but still. Now I just don't know what to do outside of being present for my baby sister and giving her all the support that I can. Update. I didn't expect my post to have so much traction, and I can't answer everybody properly, so I'll do a shortcut and update here. Before accusing Anne of being a predator and everything, you have to take into consideration a few factors. First of all, Anne is not my biological sister. We don't have the same father or mother. My biological mother adopted her after learning the abuse she went through with Anne's biological mother and her biological fathers. This man is my mom's ex who physically abused me for years, and he also fathered my baby sister. So Anne and Steph are half-sisters, just like Steph and I are from our mother, but I have no biological link to Anne. I hope this is more clear. Also, Anne went through hell as soon as 5 years old. Her mother made her take cocaine. At 6, she was forced to watch videos of her mom getting railed in threesomes and foursomes, and at 7, she was forced to participate for the preliminary. At 8, she started to participate for real, and that's when her father got the legal rights over her. So she moved to her father's house, where the abuse continued until she was 11. At that age, she ran to my mother's house to confess the abuse, and my mom started all the legal procedures to adopt her. At 12, my mom officially had all the legal rights to her. At first, Anne didn't want to talk at all, but after a few months, she felt the need to confess. So, my mom made her see a therapist around her 13th birthday. At 14, she stopped abusing my baby sister, and we started seeing some big changes in her attitude. As much as what she did was disgusting, I don't see her as a monster or a predator. She never displayed any types of predatory behavior after seeing a therapist. She always had narcissistic behaviors, which has always ticked me off, but nothing more. If so, some of her exes essayed her too, and I had to remind her where she comes from and why she shouldn't accept it again. The girl was 16 in an abusive relationship, getting abused, and she was accepting it because it's all she ever knew. I know this is Reddit and this can get wild, but remember she was 9 when it all started and it stopped when my mom put her in therapy. As much as what she did wasn't right at all, she was just a kid repeating what she has seen for her whole life until that point. As to the situation itself, I talked with Steph and she's comfortable to open the topic with my mother. We don't want to involve our older siblings because their reactions aren't 100% predictable, and we don't want to start another nuclear war in the family. We are taking this step by step and are going at my sister's pace. Now here are some relevant comments. One user in the comment section said, "Hi there. I used to work with a childhood sex therapist, and she told me that repeating the behaviors done to you on your siblings is a coping mechanism, and comfort behavior a child will continue for years after if not watched over carefully. It's her fault, but it's not. She was a child doing what she knew, but they are both victims even though it may be hard to see because one is also an offender. If anything, I would talk to your sister if you can and find out if this is something that continued into adulthood." Update number 2. First of all, I want to thank everyone and their kind messages on my first post. I've had amazing comments that really warmed my heart and made me able to see different sides of the story I didn't consider. I didn't know so many people would mind, but thank you so much. I've had way too much messages about the topic and I can't really keep up, but a lot of people asked about an update. Sorry if I didn't answer you. Going back to this is kinda hard mentally. Anyways, we spoke to my mom about the SA Anne did to my baby sister. For those who wanted an update, I don't think it's the happy story you wanted. My mom didn't have the best reaction ever. You remember I told you I came from a dysfunctional background, right? Well, it hit again. My mom blew a fuse, but didn't even contact Anne. She keeps the rage boiling inside of her, and she's about to blow up. To say she was angry is an understatement. She started yelling, insulting Anne, and Steph and I just stood there. It's like she missed the whole point of the situation and decided to throw out the rage 3 people should have felt instead of just her. She still invited Anne over for the Christmas dinner, which is in 3 days, oh my god, and to confront her in front of the whole family. I am mortified. She's basically going to ridicule her in front of the whole family at the family Christmas reunion. I still can't wrap my head around it. I didn't want to talk to Anne about it just yet. I wanted Steph to give me the permission to do so, but she doesn't seem 100% against the idea of ridiculing Anne in front of everyone. I also don't want to react and tell her, making my sister feel like I'm on her abuser's side. It's not the case, but it doesn't feel right to just sit with that thought and not do anything. So now I'm stuck between 2 chairs. Either I say nothing and watch Anne be bashed highly likely by my whole family on Christmas Eve, or I say something and I might ruin the trust my baby sister has finally gained for me while also making my mother turn Super Saiyan. Merry Christmas to me, I guess. Then in the comment section, OP provided some additional information and said, "I don't want to force my baby sister to face Anne. She just started speaking about what she's been through. Just for that, she deserves to be protected at all costs until she's ready to move forward and get to the next steps of her grieving trauma. Putting her in the same room as Anne will just make everything we worked on in the last week go backwards." Comment number 2. That's why I feel stuck in this situation. On one side, I totally understand where Anne comes from without condoning what she has done. On the other side, I perfectly understand my mom's rage. She adopted Anne and never thought she'd go do that to her last born. I promised Steph I wouldn't talk to Anne about what she confessed to me, but now I feel like I'm forced to do so just so Christmas doesn't implode and turn into a train wreck. Comment number 3. As much as I love my mother, she's been through her fair load of issues too. She's been through RA. I was almost the product of one. Hunger, violent acts, and more. So I guess her reaction roots basically from the fact that she's been through that and she never wanted her last born to go through the same thing. She always wanted to protect Steph so much. I'm not saying she's not an a-hole here, just so you know. I'm just giving you a little more background so you can maybe understand why my family is so broken and dysfunctional. That's all each of us have ever known. Update number 3. For those of you who wanted a post-Christmas update, buckle up because this has many twists and turns. So I believe I left the story when my mom went crazy and decided to still invite my sister to the Christmas party. For those of you who asked me to tell Anne, I didn't have the heart to go against what my baby sister asked me to do, which was saying nothing. But I did talk to my mom before the Christmas party. I made sure Steph wouldn't be around since she still lives with my mother and I tried talking it out. I'm paraphrasing because I stayed 3+ hours talking with her, so between the rage fits, the tears, the insults, and coming back to reality, there's a lot of stuff that happened. At first, my mom accused me of being as worse as Anne since I'm taking her side, so I had to remind her that I wasn't. I just felt stuck between two chairs, and I hated the feeling. She then hit me with the, imagine if your baby daughter has been abused by the non-blood related daughter you welcomed in your house, and I had to admit, she had a point. So then I told her that daughter you welcomed took every piece of advice in the therapy you sent her to, and she stopped her wrongdoings. But then she said it was too late because it still happened. Seeing that no matter what, my mom would try to make her look like a victim seeking revenge on Christmas, I had to hit her where it hurts so she can realize how stupid it would be and how much it would hurt the whole family. So basically, what I said is, how would you react if on Christmas I told the whole family that your ex, father of your youngest, used to beat me up every day for 10 years and you didn't do crap about it? How would you feel? The room became silent, but like a loud silence. It was so weird. She stayed there, looking at a wall and didn't say anything for a good 5 minutes before saying it wasn't the same. No, it wasn't the same, but it would have the same repercussions but for her. After talking about it, she accepted to not confront Anne in front of everybody and to keep the Christmas spirit alive and joyful for this year. So Anne did come at Christmas, but Steph wasn't happy at all. She ended up drinking a lot of the different alcoholic beverages we had around, so you can imagine her mood. She was grumpy, snappy, and hating the entire world, and I understand her. I just made sure to never leave Anne and Steph alone. I was always between the two. So, between Steph saying mean things to Anne and Anne not understanding why she was attacked, I had to take Anne apart. So, I went for a walk with Anne that felt the mood being off. Mind you, there's now my mother, my girlfriend, my big brother, and I are all aware of what happened, and it was showing. Anne kept repeating that she didn't understand why everyone was cold and distant. I had to keep my promise, so I told her, you know how the family is. We're always at each other's throats, and that's when Anne told me she had a Christmas breakfast with her biological mother the next day, and she wasn't feeling it. That's why she decided to smoke a joint during the walk. When you take everything together, she was about to explode herself. What she told me though, I still don't know how to react. Again, I'm paraphrasing because it's easier this way, and at that point, I had a few drinks under my belt. But she said something along the lines of, I know my biological mother wasn't the best, and she made me learn really awful things, and that made me do awful things, but I don't know how I can deal with it. Our mom did her best, and I still feel like I broke something up without knowing I was breaking it at the time. That's when I knew Steph wasn't lying or exaggerating what happened. Despite that, I still gave Anne the warmest hug and told her she didn't need to tell me what she did. It's Christmas, and we can talk about it once the holidays are done. When we came back, my mom went for Anne's throat in a private room for smoking, and that's when I told her, half the people here are drunk, they ain't better, piss off. She looked at me like I just betrayed her, and then when it was time to eat, my mom really tried to make the whole dinner go to trash. You see, I have a big family and not enough room so everyone can eat together. Therefore, she had to make 2 tables, meaning she had to separate some people. It was the perfect moment to keep Anne and Steph apart, but of course, she didn't. On her first drafts, she decided to put them together and said, "There's no room to change the order." So, behind her back, I decided to switch with Steph so they could eat apart and enjoy the food without having to look at Anne the whole time. Mind you, everywhere you looked, I made sure they weren't in the same room, so there wasn't any room for confrontation. After the dinner and unwrapping the gifts, my baby sister went to sleep. She was exhausted and clearly way too drunk to keep her composure. Anne left shortly after, and we ended up being with only my mom and my brother. My brother is basically on my side. We both want the best for our family and recognize that we must talk about the elephant in the room, just not now. My mom ended up kicking me out for clearly being on Anne's side and that she couldn't believe I was on my baby sister's abuser's side. Honestly, at this point, I'm just exhausted. I have much more issues to deal with at the moment, and family drama ain't cutting it. But I'm tired. I'm honestly done fighting against everything. My life has never been peaceful or joyful. It has always been fights, wars, and survival. I am so close to just giving up and being ripped apart by both sides of my family, and it's not helping at all. I don't know if there's going to be an update to this, but that's where we are at right now. At least my mom didn't go Super Saiyan on Christmas, I guess. Update number 4. Sorry, this update is going to be kind of long since a lot happened, but I'd really like some insights because we're bumping into walls with this. Here's where we are at now. I went to spend a mother-daughter day with my mother after all of this happened. I felt like we needed time, just her and I, to talk about other stuff than the abuse, and outside of the family home where tension is always at its highest. We went to get new haircuts, dinner, and buy winter boots. Nothing too crazy, but it honestly felt good to go through a normal day without tension or drama with my mother. I know in the last updates I made her seem like a dragon ready to burn down everything, but she's not. She's just super protective and she's borderline, so sometimes she has difficulties managing her emotions, but she is really a good woman with flaws like anyone else. She apologized for how she acted during Christmas and wanting to blow up the celebrations. She was disgusted by Anne's actions and didn't know what to do. She also had a talk with Anne. They didn't talk about the essay, but for some reason, Anne decided to try and trash talk my girlfriend for some flaws that she does have, but is currently working on since she's aware of it. She made fun of old pictures of her when she was overweight, but was still psychologically anorexic, claiming, "Wasn't she anorexic? 'Cause she looks fat AF in that picture." And basically something like that. And then my mom said she felt like I should know that Anne said that. My mom assured me that when the conversation turned to that, she made some BS excuse to hang up the phone because she was uncomfortable with her behavior, since my mom also struggles with ED growing up. So, with my mom also having had eating disorders, she knows being anorexic ain't only about the weight, but mostly about the relationship someone has with food. This doesn't have a connection to the essay story, but bear with me, it's gonna explode soon. When I came back home, I told my girlfriend I'd have a call with my sister for how she spoke about her. I didn't want to tell her what she said, since my girlfriend is still struggling with ED. It's not as bad as before since we're working on it, but she still has a bad vision of her body, so I didn't want her to be triggered. I ended up telling her, which she took really nicely for how rude my sister was and asked to be like a ghost on the call but still present to hear what she had to say. So when I called her, I put her on speakerphone and talked really calm, nicely, and tried to turn around the bushes because I never know how Anne will be acting when confronted with something bad that she has done. I will paraphrase a little because the call was short but escalated very quickly. Me: "So I've heard you had a conversation with Mom?" Anne: "Yeah, why?" "How did it go?" Good. Why?" "Because I've heard some stuff I didn't like, to be honest, and I'd like to know what y'all talked about." "We talked about your girlfriend. Why?" "I know that. I just want to know why y'all talked about her." Then my sister becomes passive-aggressive and says, "We were talking about her father at first and ended up talking about her." "Yeah, but why?" "Well, because why do you want to know my conversations?" "Because you talked about my girlfriend's anorexia when she was young and made fun of it." "I didn't make fun of it." "Yes, you did." Then Anne starts screaming, "No, I didn't. So if you don't want to believe me, you can just go F yourself." And then she hangs up the phone. As soon as she hung up the phone, I sent her an audio telling her I was sick of her behavior, and with the stories coming back to surface, I felt like it was an appropriate time to cut ties with her and proceed to block her on all social media. Mind you, every time she does something like that, she has the same reaction, so I'm honestly done with her perverted narcissistic behavior. I've done enough and I'm done. But this phone call was about to be Anne's downfall without her knowing. That's why I'm putting this whole context. It's the domino effect for what's gonna happen next. Not even 3 minutes later, my mom forwards me an audio of Anne screaming at her hysterically, telling her to mind her own dang business, that my mom is hypocritical and can't keep her mouth shut. After some back and forth, Anne decided to block my mom because she doesn't want to be on her side and prefers to listen to me. Mind you, Anne doesn't know that at this point, her essay on Steph has been known by my mother, my biological father, my ex-stepfather, brother, sister, uncle, and more. We decided with Steph to talk to everyone privately, one by one, and let us deal with Anne when she's comfortable enough. Making everyone aware one by one made her win a lot of courage, and when Anne decided to block my mom and act like a victim, a switch went off in my baby sister. I will be paraphrasing again because she sent a 2-minute audio on Messenger to Anne, but basically what she said is, "Hi Anne, first of all, I want to tell you that we're all done with you and how you treat us. You put us down to put yourself up, and we all see clearly in your game. I also wanted to let you know that everyone knows what you've done to me when we were kids. They've all known about the repeated essay, and that's why the mood was off at Christmas. Expect this to be my last words to you from now on. F you and burn in hell." Those last 6 words are really what she said, and I gave her a high five on this because she felt so good getting this off her chest. Since then, Anne has been trying to reach out to common friends to make herself the victim in the situation. She admitted to my mom that she did abuse Steph when they were kids, but it was just a one-time thing, the day after her father essayed her, which, knowing the timeline, doesn't make any sense. She said she realized how disgusting it was after doing it, but at first, she didn't know because her father used to tell her it was a special kind of love, and repeatedly said, "Sorry for being such a monster like my father." So she's really playing her violin while on her devil's act. So now we've cut all contact with Anne because this is going too far. She's trying to reach out to as many friends as we have in common as possible, and we're trying to fix the damages of that. We recommended to Steph to deactivate Facebook and Instagram for the next few days since we're getting flooded by family and friends about the stories. We don't want her to go back to it while Anne just keeps yapping around, making herself look like the angel when she is clearly the devil. What can we do about it outside of that? It's blowing out of proportions really quickly. We're keeping all the receipts just in case, but this is getting overwhelming and we're lost at this point. For all the kind messages and advices, thank you so much. I'm sending everyone a virtual hug, and I hope you're having a good 2024 at the moment. Much love, and thank you again. Update number 5. We weren't fine. We were respecting my baby sister's wishes. She didn't want us to tell everyone. After a talk, she decided to talk one by one to family members after Christmas. By the new year, everyone was aware of what happened. At that point, tension was at its highest because we were all mad at Anne. Mind you, she has always been kind of mean and a bully. She had to change schools a lot because of her behavior, but we always thought it was because of her biological parents. My mother adopted her after Anne allegedly was essayed by her biological father, which ended up being lies. The situation with my girlfriend was just the last drop that made the whole thing explode. After years and years of trying to empathize with her behavior, after learning that she abused my baby sister and she gave me the go to block her if I wanted to, which she didn't do when she first told the essay, I took the opportunity to cut her off my life for good. It's been 23 years of trying to empathize with her behavior, telling myself she was just repeating the behavior she saw her whole life. Every time we heard something bad about her, she turned the story around and somehow made herself look like a victim. Since we grew up together and I considered her as a sister, we took her words for granted, which we shouldn't have, and we knew we made a mistake on this. We all regret empathizing so much with her behavior because it made us blind. Now we clearly see through all of her lies. How she aggravated what she's been through with her biological father and her biological mother. How she aggravated every bad thing that supposedly happened to her, etc. You can think this story is BS as much as you want. I'd like it to be fake too, but it's not. It's been boiling for 23 years, man. It's not through a few Reddit posts that you can proclaim yourself a professional on the situation. Update number 6. Actually, no, you don't know her. We've spoken to her and she admitted she knew she SA'd her little sister and that it would traumatize her. She told us since Steph has always been the favorite of my mom, she wanted her to suffer. We are actually starting legal procedures since she messaged us those exact words and admitted to it willingly. Believe me, we thought for the longest time she never knew the consequences of her actions, but she did know and has absolutely no remorse. She even admitted abusing other people throughout her childhood, teenage years, and adulthood. At that point, she's a predator and has always displayed predatory behavior. We were just blind to it. I can't display too much information for legal purposes, but believe me, she knew perfectly. Oh man, this started off as a complex story, and then, it was kind of easy to pick a side at the end because she, had a fair point, which was like, yeah, I'm stuck in between the middle here. I understand why this person's wrong, but this person was a victim of X and Y. But then the other sister just kept talking and opening her mouth and then admitted to doing crimes and was like, yeah, I did it when I was a teenager. I did it when I was adult, and I'll do it again. Oh boy. I don't really have much else to say on this one, despite it being so long. It's a horrible situation. That's all I can say. And, I've been in situations where there's just constant drama, never like this. So I empathize with OP with wanting it to just be over. And I've been in that situation where you're like the person in the middle trying to diffuse the tension or prevent it. So I understand that she just wants to be done with it. All right. The family is already tumultuous as is. And I guess that one of the problems has been identified and now they're dealing with it. So hopefully things work out in the long term. But anyway, what do you guys think about this story? Next story. Story number 3. Am I the a-hole for leaving my wife over a computer? I, 26M, have been married to my wife Emma for 4 years. She was a social work major who I met in one of my gen ed classes. I explained to her I was a mechanical engineering major. She then asked if I could tutor her in math, and that's how we began dating. Afterwards, I decided to get my master's in Japanese to help me gain more career opportunities. My wife thought it was a silly idea and said she wouldn't be funding it, so then we decided to keep our finances separate. It wasn't a big deal since I was still working anyways, I just had less free time, so she was making more than me during this time. It paid off though, and I recently landed a high-paying job, and with that came more stress due to me having to travel to Japan more often. I've really been wanting to get into gaming, so I invested in computer parts costing around $1,500. Once I took the parts out of the box, my wife noticed the receipt and asked how I could be so irresponsible with my money. She assumed I still made the same amount, but when I told her that I make triple that amount, she began giving me the silent treatment. During this time, I began to notice my things were going missing. I wanted to go fishing with some friends one time, and when I was looking for my rods, she must have noticed and said she'd given them to her uncle. I told her not to take my stuff without asking, but didn't mind too much because they were old, so I just bought some more. Another time, I was about to go to the gym and I was looking for my pre-workout. I always keep 3 jars. I luckily had a can of Monster and that helped. I asked my wife when she got home from work and she said that she had given them to her cousin. I asked her to reimburse me because they cost $50 a jar. She said I make enough to replace them and just ignored me for the rest of the day. One day, when she thought I was sleeping, she was talking to someone on the phone, explaining how she's going to move my parents into our house. One day, when she thought I was sleeping, she was talking to someone on the phone explaining how she's going to move my parents into our house. She hadn't explained this to me. We only have 3 rooms. One is her office, one is my office/game room, and the other is our bedroom. She told the person on the phone, who I assume is her sister, that she's going to give my gaming setup to her brother to make room and that I'll get over it eventually. So today I left work early to catch her in the middle of her plans. And when I walked in our apartment, her and her brother were then placing everything into a box. I asked what was going on, and my wife, whose face was pale, said she was cleaning when her brother came by. I asked him why did he plan on taking my computer. Of course he denied. So I went into the room to get the iPad we share, and I looked through the text messages on there, and it clearly shows my wife telling him when to pick it up and to deny that he had it. I told him to get out and asked her why does she think she's so entitled to my stuff. I've never yelled at her, and I guess this scared her because she began to cry. She ended up packing a bag and went to stay with her sister. While she was out, I picked up a lock for my office. Her sister texted me calling me an a-hole. I am beginning to think I could have handled this better, so I am looking for advice. Update. After about a week staying at her sister's house, Emma called me and asked if we could meet up. I agreed and we met at a park. She apologized for everything and said she thought she was doing what was best for everybody. I asked what if I just gave her expensive makeup to my sister, and she admitted that she would be upset. I then asked why did she think it would be any different for me. She didn't have a reason, and her sister told her how unfair she was being to me. We decided to give it another chance and she moved back in. It was going good until she started moving her things into my office. I asked her what she was doing, and she explained it how she needed room for her parents. I told her no, and that's not happening. I grabbed her things and placed them back in her office. I told her that they could move in, but my space has to remain untouched. On top of that, we need to determine how bills are going to be paid because of that. She called me a selfish jerk and then ran back to her sister's. I guess her sister told her she was being inconsiderate once again. and apparently they got into an argument because the sister refuses to take their parents in and said she's tired of hearing about her problems. I agree with her. Her sister has 4 kids. Her sister called and told me everything and said that Emma went to her parents' house. I tried to call her, but she ignored my phone calls for 2 weeks. I decided I couldn't live like this, so I filed for divorce and handed the papers to her at her parents' house. She called and begged me to forgive her. I told her I'm not sure if I can. She refused to sign it until we go to counseling, but I refused and said she had 2 weeks to suggest that. So now I live alone. She still refuses to sign the papers, but that doesn't stop the divorce. It just makes it harder. Get rid of her, bro. You don't need her. Don't need her, bro. Keep the computer. Keep whatever you want, bro. Get rid of her. Get a turtle. This woman heard that her husband makes more money and immediately went silent. What? She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to look inward. She didn't go to therapy. She didn't try to improve anything. She said, "Oh, I'm going to sell and get rid of his stuff." What? Girl, your Gucci bag's gone. Louis Vuitton's gone. Makeup gone. Your iPhone chucked it in the river. No. OP decided to give her another chance, which is fair, I guess, for some people. They are open to that. But then she ignored him for 2 weeks. You do not leave the hubby on red for 2 weeks. Girl, you are stupid. And more seriously, she has some insecurity, I'm just going to assume, or guess. Or she has some quarrel with him making money. Maybe it's possibly her being wrong about the Japanese thing. I don't know. But this was not a healthy response to hearing that your partner makes more money now. Maybe it's because her partner makes more money than her. I don't know. But it's just not a healthy reaction in any regard. And there was so little communication. And if she gets divorced, she deserves it. I don't have sympathy for this woman. But what do you guys think about this story? What do you think about trampolines? When was the last time you've been on a trampoline? It's been a while for me. But anyway, thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye-bye.